How long ago was it when you jumped in? How many years are we talking?
For me, that was 2012, and it's
Wow.
2019. So, yeah, it was a minute.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It was a minute. These things take a really long time.
People don't understand how long it takes.
And fortunately, I don't age.
So you're like, yeah,
sure.
I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah, sure. Just like I did 7 years ago. No, but it was quite a process for them to get it made. It was originally going to be, believe it or not, a different film and a different property. And part of the research that Bob did was to read the book, I Heard You Paint Houses.
Right.
And he took that book to Marty and said, this is a fascinating story. And for whatever reason, they kind of decided, well, actually, no, this is a story that we want to tell. And from there, Steve Zaillian came aboard, and it was a big process, but I'm thrilled to have been a part of the finished product.
Yeah, that story is really telling, because some other directors would be stuck in their ways and they're like, no, this is the film we're going to make. And he was like, no, we can adapt it. Let's change this thing up. I think that's great.
I mean, and such a testament to the kind of artists that they are, the collaborative type of artists they are, and to this relationship, obviously, that these men have shared over the course of their careers. They're, I mean, in some ways, each other's muses, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So you can call him Bob, I'll call him Robert De Niro. You spend a lot of time with him. When you think about that time, what was most fascinating to you just about the on-screen stuff and the off-screen stuff?
Well, the thing that was most revelatory to me was to realize what normal people these legends are.
Yeah.
To be in the company of them is, of course, intimidating. But when we started working, when the camera started rolling, when we started talking about the scenes and doing the scenes together, they were just other actors. I mean, and I don't know why that surprised me as much as it did, probably because the mythology around these amazing masters of their craft looms so large. But we started working, and I was like, oh, they just do what I do. I mean, like really, really well.
Really great at it.
Really, really good at it. But and that was actually my revelation when I worked with Marty the first time as well on Wolf of Wall Street. Was, oh, he's like a normal person who happens to be a bloody genius. So lucky me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you've worked with Scorsese before. How is he different in this movie, and how does this movie kind of compare to some of the other things you've seen of his in the past or worked on?
In terms of how is it different in terms of working with him from one to the other, they were obviously very different films. The Irishman had a very familial sort of sense of camaraderie around it. These guys all know each other and worked with each other so much. It felt very much like I was being invited into the inner sanctum of a family who's really comfortable. The process was very, I don't want to say relaxed, because it was definitely, like, the stakes were very high, I think, for everyone, but there was a trust amongst everyone. With Wolf of Wall Street, obviously that trust existed between Leo and Marty, but it was just a cast of thousands.
Yeah, that was a huge
I mean, this one
movie.
is too, but I mean, that was just lots of people, lots of the time. This was lots of people here and there.
Right.
And Wolf was, it was comedy.
Yeah,
and we had a lot of fun. So there was a little more sense of hijinks, perhaps. Marty has this unbelievably ageless quality about him, where he's very fleet of foot. He moves quickly, he thinks quickly, he directs and takes his moment with you, and then we're on and we're moving. So he's just very vital, and that remained true from my experience in Wolf to The Irishman. So.
Wolf was an amazing movie. I really enjoyed that movie. That must have been a blast for you to be on, and especially your character too, just kind of cuts through all the BS, all the men in that situation.
I know. I love being that lady. I love being that
must have been pretty dope for you.
It was crazy cool, because I got to be sort of like part of the boys club, but not one of the boys, and sort of I don't know. It was fun because the atmosphere that time period was, or the story that we were telling there with Stratton Oakmont and the sort of no holds barred crazy boys club. It was cool to be the single woman in there who could just with a look shut someone down,
You certainly did.
I felt powerful.
No doubt. So when you think about your roles, whether it's this movie, Wolf, like, what are you looking for in a role? What kind of challenges you and pushes you? Oh,
that's a great question. I'll tell you what I'm really attracted to about the women that I've gotten to play in Marty's films is the authenticity of who they are. Obviously, Irene and, well, Kimmy, both based on real human beings.
Right.
We're actual people in the world. So for me as an actor, being called upon to tell a real story, the truth of a human being's life, I felt a tremendous amount of pressure to get it right and to dig into the humanity, because you see glimpses of these women in difficult scenarios. I mean, Kimmy was in this boys' club. Irene's married to a man who, frankly, a little bit of a monster.
Yeah.
But you know, these are real people who were in these real situations, and Irene still loved Frank and still stayed with Frank and found a way to make a family life with Frank. So what is, as an actor, digging into that humanity and finding the deeper truths of why, that, as an actor, that's what turns me on.
That's really interesting, because you think of that situation, some people on the surface would say, how could you love that man? How could you be in a relationship with him? And it's like, actually, it's really easy to just be like, you know what, we're going to keep this thing together. We have family, we have kids. Like, I'm just going to survive. Like, that's something that as you dig a little deeper, you're like, okay, there's some real human stuff going on here.
Yeah, and human beings have a tremendous capability for compartmentalization. So the Frank that was out there working for Russell Bufalino may not have been the Frank that was at home with Irene.
Two different guys.
I mean, who knows? You know, I will never truly know. I mean, I do have some indication of the reality of her life, because, believe it or not, Irene's granddaughter worked on the film.
Oh, wow.
She is in the movie world as in the wardrobe department. And she was incredibly generous with information about Irene, and I tried to pull a lot of those real authentic details into my performance. So, I mean, you rarely get an opportunity to have that kind of information when you're working on a character.
Yeah, I was going to say, had you ever had that sort of connection, like that you'd met a family member or something like that? Or?
Never.
Wow.
No, not like that. And I've, you know, on Broadway, I understudied the role of Judy Garland in The Boy from Oz. And so, you know, there's volumes of performance, and you can read books and stuff, but to be firsthand with, oh, this was your relation?
Nothing like that.
I mean, yeah, no, you can't get any closer to the source than that.
Totally.